Welcome team. I'm very excited to bring to you Emma Lawrence. Now Emma, I'm not a polished journalist doing an introduction. Could you train me, right?
I wouldn't say I'm a podcast pro.
Yeah.
Because TV is different.
Right.
TV is all about, from the beginning having energy and stuff. But a podcast, you also want to be relaxed, right?
Yes.
It's kind of, I think
that's my argument.
Because the beauty of a podcast is that you just feel like you're sitting and chatting to someone. You don't actually feel like you're in an interview because you're relaxed.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's the balance then between being, because you don't want to look like you're on a TV broadcast starting State of Origin going, welcome everyone, because
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think you do a good job.
Because I do get this feedback around you need, well, in particular, so the sound one we do on the Apple Podcast, the Spotify and all that type of stuff, it's a bit different, but the YouTube stuff, you need to grab people's attention because you want them to stay on and watch.
Yeah.
But I'm just getting that balance. I'm just finding my way.
Always think energy, but you don't have to be over. Just be yourself.
Okay.
I think be yourself is the best piece of advice I could say.
Well, welcome everybody. I have Emma Lawrence here, who her knowledge of the game of rugby league has probably set her a bench above other people, I believe, in the journalism space. Not just your knowledge, I feel your empathy towards. You've lived the life of a family of people in rugby league because your brother was a superstar player and a very well respected player on and off the field. So you have this level of empathy, and then you have there's this trust factor when Emma Lawrence walks in a rugby league or a sporting environment. There's a trust factor that's just kind of automatically there between you and the player or you and the coach, even though sometimes journalism is a tough game. Like you can get tarnished with the same brush. You can have people that have
sometimes everyone hates us.
Well, everyone hates you, and everyone someone's been burnt before, so they hold it against you when it was probably the boss that said do that story because it will get us ratings. So how do you go when you have to do a tough story and you know what it's going to be like and how that may affect their family?
Yeah, it's interesting, the dynamic. I think at times players and coaches, I totally understand there's they have reservations with the media, and a lot of them have been burnt by the media at times, but I don't think we're all out to get them, and I think I would like to see us develop, better relationships between players and the media, or coaches and the media, because and I know some clubs will do training so that you can come in and someone from the media will explain how it all works. I think an understanding of how it all works makes sense, and knowing it doesn't have to be us against them, and there are different types of platforms, and because you mentioned trust before, that's what I enjoy doing. Like my favorite thing to do is to sit down with someone, get them to open up and tell their story. And I would like to think that that's one of my strengths, creating that trust and creating a platform where they can open up. And I feel that's my strength, and my strength is not, having lots of contacts and getting all the whispers and breaking. I'm hearing a player's going to this club. That's not really my strength, and that's not what really I'm most passionate about, and that is for some other people, and that's a part of the game, and that's fine. That's why I think it's not all, I don't think we're all bad people and journalists. I think sometimes players, they naturally, if you want to do a story, might think, oh, I don't want to speak to the media. But, at times we can be trying to, tell a really positive story. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about telling a story about someone's journey, about how far they've come, the hurdles they've had to overcome, or whatever it may be, whether it's an injury or, something with their family. But, I enjoy, at the end of the day, storytelling and getting people to open up. So that's what I'm passionate about.
Have you had any setbacks? Where you've had to handle something? Have you had any hard times?
Well, I guess probably I would say personal, like professional setbacks and personal setbacks, but I think they all kind of blend into one in a sense, because if you then get over personal setbacks, that makes you better in your career. But career-wise, I would say I wouldn't say there's one defining setback, but something that's always been, I worked at Fox when I started at Fox 2013, and I would always back myself with my knowledge of league, my work ethic, all the things you probably want for a reporter. I would say the broadcast quality elements and my voice that's always the thing I had to work on. That's always been the thing that held me back. And I remember when I was first at Fox, I was allowed to write the packages. I was allowed to voice it. I'd cut, I could, edit on the software, but my boss wouldn't let me voice things and go to air. And this was probably for about 2 years, or maybe not even, maybe 18 months. But, and I couldn't believe it. And I used to listen to other voices that would go to air, and I would think, well, how's that voice any better than mine? And It used to frustrate me so much. But I went and found a voice coach. So someone had suggested this lady who worked for the ABC at the time. So I went and paid for voice coaching myself. I probably had 20 sessions with this lady. And then eventually I was allowed to voice stuff on air. But then it kind of would always be the thing that would hold me back. So we ended up getting a voice coach into Fox who would come in every couple of months. And I'd do extra sessions with him as well. And then I got to the point I was working my way up at Fox. I was out on the road reporting, then I was reading the news, and then I wanted to get into sideline reporting, and I was doing the reserve grade under 20s, and I'd said to the boss, if there are any NRL games that pop up, I'd love to do it and fill in. He's like, you're doing a great job. Your knowledge of the game is great. It is, but you just still need to work on your voice. And I just remember at the time, I was like, I just can't believe it that I've done a couple of years of voice training, doing all of this, and every time I hear anything about my voice, I just think, oh, seriously? I've worked so hard on it. But it's made me such a better reporter, because I listen back now to those times it was the beginning, and my voice, because I have a really girly voice, a really high-pitched voice, so my voice has improved so much. And when I thought, oh, there's not really anything that wrong with it, and if I had a boss that just let me on air and just let me read the news, let me do all of this, it's not like it was so terrible. You'd be like, oh, what's that? But it didn't have a sense of authority to it, because it was a really young girly voice. It's not and people might not understand it if you're not in the broadcast industry, but you have to, if you've got a respected voice with authority and taken seriously, it's more a deep voice, and you might not realize it because people probably don't pick up on different pitches and things like that when you're just watching someone, but a lot of work goes into voice quality. So if I didn't have to work and work and work at my voice, I definitely wouldn't be in the position I am now, and I wouldn't be at the point where I can, I'm hosting things at Channel 9 or filling in reading the sport at Channel 9 and doing sideline reporting. But because I had to work hard, and that was always the thing, constantly, oh no, you can't voice a package because your voice, or you can't read the news because of your voice. You can't do sideline on the NRL because of your voice, constantly. But I've worked harder and harder at it, to the point where now I'll do my voice exercises every single day before I go on air. I refuse to go on. I just won't go on air until I've done my voice warm-ups. Yeah.
So we were going in all angles there, a lot of chat around mutual interest in that sport, but this is where I want to go.
Yeah.
Because there's young girls out there now who are striving to get a career like yours. whether you like it or not, you're the face on the news. You are the one that girls are inspired by at the moment. Nobody knew until right now, I didn't know, how hard you actually worked on the voice, and you still do your voice exercises every day.
It's funny.
It's no
People
different
can't believe it,
to an athlete
Yeah.
who got told, no, your kicking game's no good, so you have to keep practice. It's no different. It's no different that, no, your game management, you need to learn a little bit more here, so you have to go and study the game more, or you need to get stronger or bigger or lose weight or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's no different.
Yeah, it's the same.
But you were getting knocked back.
And some people think you just like go on air and you're just like ready to go on air. But for 2 years I couldn't actually go on air, and then I probably had another period where I was held back from doing sideline on the NRL. I was allowed to do the under 20s, and I remember when I'd wanted to just voice something to first go on air, like every week I'd voice a package and I'd take it to my boss. I'm like, what do you think now? And he's like, it's better, but no, not yet.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh. And then he's like, don't just keep coming to me. Like every week I'd voice something, I'd work on it, I'd stay back, I'd practice. He's like, it's better, but no, you still can't go on air.
I love this.
He had said to me at the time, like, why are you in a rush? Because I said, well, because I want to do this stuff. He said, yeah, but wouldn't you rather do it well and be good at it? Like, make sure you're ready to go on air, especially because when you go on air and you're scrutinized, like people can form opinions quickly and, oh, like, she's got a shit voice, or she's not a good reporter, or whatever it is. Like, make sure you do it well. And everyone has, like, all bosses will have different opinions. Some bosses might not have ever had a problem with my voice, but it's certainly so much better, to the point where now even, like, it still gets better, even though I'm a host now and my voice is good enough to be on air and to be a host. I still am working on it, to the point where I listen to things I did last year and think, oh, like my voice is even better this year compared to what it is last year, because I do the exercises every single day.
What are the exercises?
So everyone always laughs at me, because all my friends, like, if I do the exercises to them. So the first few are like diaphragm breathing. So you'd have to like breathe like out for 4. So you go out for 4, hold for 7, and then back in for 8. And it's opening up your diaphragm. That's the first part, because
there'd be people driving now doing this right
it's
this
like
second.
It's very technical,
so,
but
out for 4.
So you'd go like 4, hold for 7.
Sorry, in for 4.
So you go, so you're breathing in but your diaphragm is going out.
Yeah.
So if people are listening, they can't see, but like you'd put your hands on your diaphragm. So if you breathe in, you can feel your diaphragm expand and fill up your hands.
Yeah.
So because sometimes people breathe the wrong way. So when you breathe in, your diaphragm should be expanding and you're filling up with air. And then when you breathe out, your diaphragm's coming in.
So you're holding then for 7?
You're just holding to like make sure you're filling up, and then you breathe out, just so it's like exaggerating those in and out movements, because it's technical, but your breath needs to be deep. It needs to come from low.
Yeah, right.
So if you are just breathing from your chest and like sort of nasal passage, it sounds high pitched. And some people might naturally have a really deep, husky voice that's perfect for broadcast, right?
Yeah.
Naturally, and might not have to work at it. So it's even just in sports, some people, like my brother was like, had to work a lot on his mobility, and some people might need a lot of mobility work and warm-ups before they go out in the field. But your body might be different to mine and require different warm-ups. So some people might not have required the extent of voice training that I had, because I had a naturally really high-pitched voice. But you have to try and get it low. So the diaphragm exercises, they're the first thing. And then it's like getting the vibrations going. So like you'd have to do like the, like, all those sort of, like I do them now, like my partner Tom, he just bags me out and he'll start doing, going, but da ga and like in doing all your vowel sounds with the vibrations. So
Oh, really?
yes, I'd go but da ga it's like all your like different sound. It's like getting vibrations out through your mouth, which sounds very like anyone I've ever lived with. If I've lived with my mum, my brother, they can hear me like doing them in my room or something, and they just pay the shit out of me. But it
look
sounds
where you
weird.
are now.
It
I
sounds
love
weird.
this story.
It sounds very weird, and I do them every day because I refuse to. I'm not going to go on air once where I haven't given myself the best opportunity for my voice to sound at its best, and because it genuinely does make a difference. Like it sounds. It's like I have to warm my body up. I have to get my diaphragm ready to have a deeper voice.
You just said stuff that honestly will relate to anybody of any industry, because you just said you've got to give yourself every opportunity to perform well. That's like any reserve grade player. You have to be ready, because when it's your time and you get one first impression, like you're making a first impression every day on camera to somebody. And the way you're talking about preparation, I think it's inspiring. I hope, I don't think my daughter watches my podcast, but I hope she listens, that no matter what she's doing, no matter where she wants to go in her life, preparation and even setbacks and how you handle it, and you went and paid for your own training. That's like an athlete going and paying for their own extra work, or like it's an investment in
it's worth investing. And even though I got to a point for a while, it's like almost got on air and it's like I wasn't doing them as much, like back when I was still at Fox, because I thought, oh, well, I'm allowed to do these things now. I don't really need to do them every now and then. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, well, no, if it's going to make me better, and to the point now, even recently, I might do them. So generally I do it when I'm in the car, because I'm on my own and it's easier.
If you're not listening to this podcast.
Yes, of course. So it's easier because no one's around. I don't have to bother anyone. So it's easiest to do it in the car. But then sometimes I might, if that was in the morning, might be reading the news at night. Like maybe I'll just go into the voice booth at work and I might do another lot. Or I've actually started only in the last, like probably this year, just reflecting and like on setting goals and what I want to do. I'm like, well, my voice can still get better. So I'll do it on the way. But then before I voice my package for on air, I'll just do them again. I'm like, well, twice in one day doing them is better than one day. But the funniest bit, which sometimes my friends laugh at, is so sometimes if I have to get a flight to, because I'll do every Sunday game sideline for Channel 9. So I might fly to Melbourne or the Gold Coast or something. And I might have to get a 6 a.m. flight to get there for the footy show and everything, and get up and I'm rushing and I haven't done them. I'm like, oh, well, I'm now at the ground. So I'll go to the bathroom and I'll do them in the bathroom. But like the breathing stuff you can do if no one's there, because it's like, I think it's before anyone's arrived at the stadium, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? There might be people there, like the cleaners and the chefs and anything. I'm like, oh, I'll start doing the like vibration ones, like but gut. I'm like, oh, but what if people walking past? It sounds weird. So I'll like put the hand dryer on
and do it.
And I'll just be like, but and I'll do them, because I'm like, oh, I've got to find a way to do them before I go on air, which sounds very weird, but I'm like, I can't not do them. I'll find a way to.
Well, I love this. So you were trying to make your way. You kept getting setback after setback. You trained hard. You invested in your extra training, and here you are now in probably a job where every journalist who's trying to make their way, they'd love to be working on Channel 9, right? That's like the pinnacle.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you sharing that hard time, and it turned into an inspiring little story.
I think that you just always try and find a way for things. Like I always used to think like, oh, like when the boss would say that, and like I respected the boss, but I'd always be like, oh, I'll show you. I'll get to the point where, you know, I've got a voice that can go on air but I'm not, I agree, listening back now, I do think he was right, my voice did need work, but, you know, it just made me more determined. So I think all of those setbacks, they help you. But I was always very, and still am, like very determined. And even with work, there'd be a time, you know, when I was voicing packages my early days at Fox, and I wanted to be on camera, like to start practicing doing that stuff. But there were lots of people ahead of me doing rugby league, and we had the netball rights at the time, and I loved my netball. So I had suggested doing these segments and just like finding ways, like rather than just thinking, okay, well, I can't be on camera because I've got all of these rugby league reporters in front of me. I thought I'll find a way
yeah.
And like netball was the avenue because no one was doing netball, and I liked netball. So I'd gone to our boss in news at the time and suggested doing this segment. And again, I don't know whether he didn't want me to do it. He didn't think I was up to doing it because I hadn't really done stuff on camera. But I remember there were just excuses like, oh, but we don't have the studio space. So I went to the rugby guys and I'd said, oh, can we, like, what time do you have your rugby studio? Can we use it after that? And I'm like, I've sorted the studio.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah. The only thing is, like, if we, because if you have a guest, we have to pay them. We can't really afford it. So, yeah, we can't pay a guest. And so I went up to the head of, so Keely Devery, who was head of rugby and netball at the time, she had helped me with it and help out the studio space. She said, well, we'll pay for our department for the broadcasters, like their, it's just different budgets basically.
Yeah.
She's like, we'll pay for it as part of the broadcast budget, so you don't have to pay her for news. So I went back and I said, I've sorted it. You don't have to pay for Shani Layton. I've got the studio space.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think there was one other thing, like one other reason. He's like, oh, I can't. And then in the end, I'm like, he's like, okay. I'm like, I've sorted the budget. I've sorted the studio. I've sorted this. And I'm like, you just find a way to do it because you might not. I wasn't going to get an opportunity doing NRL yet, but I found a way. And the first thing I did on camera for Fox was a netball segment every week with Shani Layton. So we did a preview of all the games coming up. Yeah. And then we also did a review segment like after the weekend. So
that was your debut.
My first thing on camera was netball segment. And because I thought, okay, I've got to find a way, like you have to create your own opportunities. Like things aren't just going to land in your lap. And you're not going to get everything straight away. Like if I said, oh, like back then I want to do sideline already. I'm like, you've barely even been on camera. You haven't read the news. You want to go into the cup. Like you have to be realistic. But yeah, I think because it's such a competitive industry, you have to find a way to work your way up because people aren't just going to come like, hey, would you love this opportunity? How about we do this? Like you have to come up with like ways that you can work your way up yourself, really. So
well done. That debut.
So that was the first kind
well earned. And I dare say there was lots of work on the way up, which was you would have worked for free. You would have put in time that like. Yeah,
I did heaps of work for free. Like it was funny we're just sort of going like back a little bit, but so at uni I did journalism. I had communications and journalism, but then I wasn't exactly sure if I wanted to do that. Well, I loved sport, but I also wanted. Well, I liked. I was confused when I was picking my preferences after the HSC. Like, do I want to do law? Do I want to do medicine? Do I want to do, like, I wanted to do, there were so many different things I thought I could maybe do. And I got a good, it was UAI at the time. And I finished journalism. I thought, but what if I wanted to do law? Or I do like finance and numbers. And I just had all these, like, my head was just kind of all over the place. So I went back and did commerce. Like a Masters of Commerce, and I was working at a law firm for 18 months. So before I even started working at Fox, I was working at Minter Ellison at a law firm there for 18 months. And then what happened, when I was there, I realised, I thought, I actually don't think this kind of, like, doing something in, like, corporate and law, like, I don't think that's for me. And it was a good experience because at least it taught me that I didn't want to do that. And it was a great experience. I was working directly with the partners of the firm on like private equity deals, mergers and acquisitions and all this. So it was like, it was pretty cool. Yeah, you're working on big stuff, but I just knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So then when I wanted to, I'd kind of forgotten about this until we just thought of it then, but I realised that I wanted to do journalism. I thought, actually, no, that's
it.
The path I want to go back down. So someone had put me in touch with the boss at Fox, and I had emailed, and he said, just come in for a shadow shift and see if you like it. So I had, and then it's like, oh, just keep coming in for these types of things. I'm like, oh, well, I can't really do it. Like, I'm going to have to start taking sickies from, like, there's not a way I'm going to be able to do this. And eventually I thought, you know what, I'm just going to bite the bullet. Like, I was getting quite a few of them as like, just like shadowing shifts. I thought, if I don't want to be in the law firm, so I left there, and I was getting all these shifts for a couple of weeks at Fox, and then they made like half their newsroom redundant. They did this big restructure.
Yeah.
And then said, oh, actually, well, I've just made half the newsroom redundant. We can't give you any shifts. So I'd left this job. Yeah. So all of a sudden I didn't have a job. So I took the risk, and I thought, okay, I'm getting some shadow shifts. This is what I want to chase. I'll do this. And then 2 weeks later, I'm thinking, oh,
what have I done?
What have I done? I don't have a job, like, at all. Like, I left the law firm. I left I was still a grad role, but pretty well-paying grad role. I probably earned more at the law firm than I did for the next 6 years at Fox Sports, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was living at home, thankfully, so it wasn't the end of the world. But then I was just doing a bit of like casual work, doing sports stuff at schools.
Yeah.
I had like contacted 2SM, so I was doing like a one show a week on a Friday afternoon with Graham Hughes and 2SM just to like find things to do. But I just kept hassling Fox, and can I come back? Oh, it's still, we just can't really.
It's so good. Like, you just.
And then he just, in the end, I think he was just like, this bitch is so annoying.
Up.
Like, honestly, let's just like give her. So he gave me, he's like, you can come in, but I can't, we've just made everyone redundant. Like, I can't pay you. Yeah. So I did like 3 months, just went in for free, in the hope that I'm like, surely when they can hire someone.
Well, not many kids will do that now.
It's going to be me, because I've just done 3 months for free.
There's not many kids will do that.
Yeah.
Free work.
Yeah.
But I have.
That's the difference. The free work is where it gets you where you want to be.
Yeah, so.
Even when I was at Fox Sports News, but then the Fox League department was separate. Yeah. And I wanted to do, again, I just think they're just like, this girl's hassling me so much, we'll just give her a go to shut her up. But like, oh, I'd love to do sideline. Like, we don't really have budget. We've already got heaps of people, which is fair enough. Yeah. I'm like, oh, well, I don't mind doing it, like, unpaid. And I probably maybe wasn't up to doing NRL sideline at that stage. But then, so they gave me under 20s and Canterbury Cup. So I did sideline for those two for 2 years, like, unpaid. So I did 2 games a week, like every week, unpaid for 2 years.
For 2 years.
And my boss at Fox Sports News at the time was thankfully, like, very flexible. Yeah. So what I'd say, if I was on the Saturday night shift at Fox Sports News, and so like, you know how 20s at the time started earlier, it might be like, 11 a.m. games. So I might go do 2 games, so get to the ground at 9, do 2 games, go back to Fox Sports News, and I might have to get there an hour or 2 late. But he's like, that's all right, like, you're doing this stuff for free, and then work till Fox Sports News till 1 a.m. on the news desk or whatever. And I remember this, I did it the first year. I remember the second year thinking, like, surely these guys are going to pay me this year. And they didn't, but I'm like, oh.
And look at you
I'll just
now.
do it. I'll just do it anyway.
Now you're the highest paid.
I wish. It's all worth it in the end. But I remember there are times I'm like, is this worth it? I'm like, this is bullshit. I'm doing this for free again.
I bet you end up being the highest paid in your field one day.
One day, and that would be nice.
We'll go back and listen to this, and we'll be reminding young kids now, like, so even sharing a little bit of my journey. So I was working at the Parramatta Eels, and when I first started was a little part-time type bit, but do lots of work for free. Brian Smith walked over one day and said, "Do you want to work for me full time?"
Yeah.
Part of that job was half my contract was to put next to the rugby league team and half was the soccer team. They had a soccer team called Para Power. And I was in like the physical area. And then Brian then said to me, "I'd like you to come in 6 a.m. every Saturday morning, Sunday morning, post game and sit with the coaching staff and analyse the game with the staff." So you're talking 6 a.m. on a Sunday when everyone else my age at the time was probably laying in bed still hungover. And that time for me, so I didn't have to do that. That wasn't part of my job. This was free, unpaid work where I got to sit and study the game to the level of detail that I look back now, it's been so helpful for the rest of my career. Brian really did that to me.
Yeah.
And I even thanked him for it recently. I said, "Mate, those 6 a.m. Sunday mornings for free, even the first year when I was part-time coming in, it was priceless experience, priceless learning. There's stuff that is within me now that you can't take away from me because it was just pumped into me for years and years and years under coaches like him."
Yeah.
And but I look back, like I did so much stuff for free when I started in that game, and everyone did. So that's
it's worth it. And even a family friend of ours, she's at uni and she had called me a couple of weeks ago and just wanted advice. And she's at uni and she's trying to work as well to get money, and then had been offered this job doing a bit of stuff for like working for New South Wales Rugby League on like the lower grades, like writing articles and stuff.
Yeah.
And she was asking me like, you know, it's basically, it's so much of her time by the time you drive to it, but she also needs to go and earn money.
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's worth it? And I called her and because she had messaged me, and instead of just messaging back, I thought I'm going to call her because I want to really stress, like not just yes, it's worth it. Like it'll make all the difference, because if you're going and doing, I think it might have, they paid like $100 or something. So it's basically for free. It's not really like work, but like that will, not only you'll learn so much to start with, like just getting your foot in the industry, but then when you go and try and get another job, the fact that you've done that stuff, like it helped them. Like don't think about the fact that you're not, if you're not earning money, or even if it's just like crappy money, like in the beginning, it will pay off. It will. It eventually will. And I mean, there are times like, for 2 years when I'm doing free stuff and I'm thinking, this is bullshit that I'm still doing it for free. But I think it was, at the time I had doubts like if it was worth it, but it definitely was worth it in the end. So I always would say, like, do all that free stuff.
Well, I love that you've just led me in, because I want to know your story and your journey. But I should go back on that intro. It's not just rugby league. Your debut on camera was in front of a camera for netball. And I believe it's your training through all this rugby league world. I'm only predicting this, but you are going all the way in this journalism space. I've got no doubt we'll see you on the Olympic coverage, and you'll be covering all sports. And wherever, I wouldn't mind knowing what your goals are. I don't know where you're heading, but I feel like you've got years and years of work and foundation, that if the foundation is this big, the peak's like way up here. Like you haven't got a small foundation, you're going to peak here.
Yeah.
You've got this massive foundation, and I believe like sky's the limit type stuff. But take me through your journey. How did it start, and what made you decide I want to be a journalist? And then was there any idols along the way that you followed, and has anyone taken you under their wing that has taught you a lot? Yeah,
so the journey, well, I always loved writing and public speaking. So I always, at school, I enjoyed whenever it was the subjects where you had to get up and do a speech. So, and always loved writing as well. So was probably always inclined to go down this path at some point. But I also then enjoyed quite a different number of things. So when I finished my HSC, I was quite confused as to what I wanted to do. Do I go physio, medicine, law, whatever it may be? And eventually had chosen to go down the journalism path. But yeah, eventually then ended up, long story short, I started at Fox. I'd moved my way to Channel 10, ended up now at Channel 9 and doing radio along the way. So I've been doing Triple M for about 8 years now. So, but it's funny talking about like goals, because I'm always someone I've always been very determined and goal oriented, and I used to always write down my goals at the start of every year or even start of every week, and I still do set goals, but something that I've been working on over the last few years is not just being just focused on the goal and not enjoying the journey, because I think I'm such a perfectionist. Everything I did, I'd criticize everything I did. Like I'd finish a story or a live cross and I'd look at everything I did wrong with that and needed to do better. And whatever I was working towards, if I wanted to, I want to voice my first package on air, or I want to read the news or do my first sideline, I'd get to that point and it's like not that I wasn't happy along the way, but you never really like soak everything up and think, how good is this? I'm working here at Fox Sports or Channel 9, and you just want to get to that goal. And as soon as I got to a certain goal, it's almost you don't like not grateful for it or not proud. And it's just like, okay, what's on to the next? So I've tried to, and I still try to set goals, but I was always just, okay, got to get to this point. Okay, what's next? What's next? It's like, well, if you're never going to actually be proud of yourself and be happy with what you've achieved, like, what's the point?
And so enjoy the journey.
Yeah, so I've like massively been on the last 3 years on this kind of like period, like I guess a journey for myself of trying to enjoy my journey and appreciate where I'm at. And like I still have goals, and I still at the start of every week I want to try and get this done today. I might want to have this meeting, speak to the boss about being involved in this game or this production. So I'm still like very determined and goal driven, but trying to be a lot about, enjoying the journey along the way, which I think is good for anyone. Like it would be an athlete or like anyone.
Well,
it's a life lesson, I think.
Isn't that funny that now you're living like that? Enjoying enjoying the journey, and probably living a little bit true to yourself. Isn't it funny that the trophy just takes care of itself? Like
it's so true. That's what happens.
It's the same in sport. So if I have a team of players, or even myself, if I live, like we like to say, authentically to me and what my philosophy and vision is, if I live to that and tick that off, then the trophy, which we all want, the trophy takes care of itself. And it's the same with players or athletes. A lot of them come into the game with a real rookie mind of loving life and enjoying the journey, and it's all part of the journey, and you see opportunity in losing and winning. And then they go through this real stressful time where it's a bit like what you used to do. Overanalyze things, and weight of the world on their shoulders, and then they get to the back end and they go, you know what, I'm going to enjoy the journey, and they play their best. The back end. Isn't it funny when you just live that way, the trophy kind of takes care of itself. So I guess a trophy for you is you're in Channel 9, you get the top job, but the way you're living, it's
it makes all the difference. Like it's so, and footy players used to say it sometimes. And honestly, as a journalist, if they'd say, "Oh, no, honestly, like I'm not saying like I want to play Origin or I wanted this. I just like I really want to like it's about the process."
Focus
and I used to be like, "Oh yeah, like
cliche,
sure, like please."
How true is
please? That? And it's so true. And and it's funny, like sometimes it might be a setback or a struggle that. I don't know if it forces you to reevaluate things, but sometimes it might. And I feel like I did a lot of more work on that type of stuff, like mindset and personal development more so in the last 3 years. But probably only came about as a result of things in my personal life, because I had split up with my ex-partner, and I was living on my own, probably had more time to myself, and you just get a bit more you just kind of like, you know, when big things happen in your life, I had more time to myself, became a bit more reflective, but also met a friend, my neighbour actually, who is an executive coach that does a lot of career coaching with like MBA students, but also like mindset work. And so I became really fascinated with all this stuff to do with mindset and personal growth, and because she was really into that, and I did a few coaching sessions with her, and she gave me a lot of books to read, and it kind of only it was been the last, like I was always very determined, but I just took a different outlook on, like I feel like I've learned so much in the last few years, but I feel like maybe if I didn't have that hard period in my personal life where my life kind of changed and then ended up, you know, like having to move to a new place and being on my own. I met her as a result. I feel like the hard times,
I love it.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
My own journey, and let's say midway through. So I've been working now in elite sport for 25 years, and what happened to me midway through that, I started to work with Brad Fittler.
Yeah. We
went away on a NRL All-Stars camp. Wayne Bennett was the coach, Brad was the assistant, and me and Brad were rooming next to each other, and we started working a lot together, and he was doing a lot of work on himself as well. So he'd recently lost his job with the Roosters as head coach, and we went on this bit of a path, and we worked together every year with the city origin teams and tinkered away, and we knew how he'd eventually run his origin camps. Now, you might remember when we first jumped into origin, everyone thought he was off the planet with all this mind stuff. But we were so into that. If you front load that part of your life and you front load it as actual training, when you come under pressure situations, you'll be able to stay much calmer and get through things. So that first year in Origin, the perception was we were on hippie camp, you know, walking bare feet.
That's what we were doing stories on the meditation and the feet.
And visualization and like, fast forward 5-6 years now, and every team would be doing that.
They all do. You see them even in some of the games. They're doing the breathing.
So I think, Freddie and I were big believers in that mindset space. But him in particular, I think he was a bit of innovative there, where people thought he was crazy. But then you go back. Coaches that coached the Chicago Bulls 20, 30 years ago, winning NBA championships, they were doing it, and then it went on to like the Jordans and the Kobe Bryants. And then eventually now you walk into a dressing room before a game and you'll see half the players.
They're all doing that stuff. I think it makes all the difference.
You have a little bit of that in your own routine?
Yeah, I do. So much of that sort of, and it's only been the last few years that I've started doing that. And probably really because I had met Kiralee, my friend, who is this coach, and did a lot of work with her, and Kiralee Middleton, if you anyone wants to look her up on LinkedIn. She's a super intelligent, really inspiring woman, and I've become good friends with her. But through doing a couple of these coaching sessions with her, started implementing a routine of mindfulness every morning. So I will do mindfulness every single day. And it could take different forms. So I sometimes will do guided meditations, and I have some different ones. Or what I started to do with her, just the basic ones, I got in a routine of doing a few things that I'm grateful for. So I do gratitude and affirmation. So every morning, what am I grateful for? And just take a moment to be calm, like a few deep breaths, think of what I'm grateful for, but not just think, I'm grateful for my boyfriend, I'm grateful for my job, but actually like feel how actually not just physically think about it, but to actually like feel the gratitude, if that makes sense. And And it's whatever kind of comes to your mind. And sometimes a few mornings in a row, the same things might kind of come to mind, or it might be something from few months ago, a few years ago that might pop into my mind. Like, it's funny how your mind will just, based on what's happened that day or that week, things might pop into your mind. And then I'll do affirmations every morning. So at the start of our sessions, we had, and I guess it's all individual on what you want to work on, but on what I valued, like who I wanted to be. And so I will have these affirmations that I will say each morning, right? So I start off with, like, I am strong, because I would think like I'm really strong. And sometimes things, so I'll just think I am strong, and just let that sit with me for a bit, and what comes into my mind. And you might think of the whole idea is thinking of things that would validate that for you. It's about rewiring your brain for you to think, like, I'm strong. And I might think of something like a tough time I went through and got through it. That might pop into my mind. It might be something at the gym I might think of, like I might be physically strong, whatever it is. And then I am intelligent. And so I think of that. And then something might pop into my mind of, when I was doing a live cross, and I memorized all these stats off the top of my head, or whatever it might be. You try and think of examples that validate that affirmation for you.
Yeah.
And rewiring your brain. And you're not automatically going to change. It's kind of like, I guess, you take years and years and years throughout your childhood to develop your view of the world and your perspective and your values. So you can't just change it overnight. But if you work at it and slowly chip away, you can rewire your perspective of yourself and your perspective of the world. And I feel like I'm a much more positive person, more confident in myself. But you have to do the work on it. And I do it every single day.
That is so good. So I often find myself of late talking with people on these shows, and we often refer back to a great few years for me was with the Penrith Panthers.
Yeah.
And when I first introduced this kind of Freddie type stuff to the Panthers, some guys
what's wrong with this bloke?
Who is this guy, And even staff found it pretty hard for me. I would make them do yoga, meditation, visualization every morning. And in part of that, sometimes I would guide some visualization where they do have to spend a bit of time on what they're grateful for, and then set their intentions for the day. And then we can then get a little bit specific around what they're about to go and practice or do. But at first, so people thought, what is this? And then we just kept believing in just front load this stuff the same way we go in the gym, the same way we go and practice our skills to develop it. Let's chip away until it becomes routine and now you go in their locker room and there'll be blokes meditating that 3 years ago would start giggling as soon as the meditation started.
Yeah.
But now it's part of their routine. So we would then journal it. I don't know if you do any journaling.
Yeah, I journal out as well, yeah.
Yeah, we would do some breathing, grateful, set their intentions, they write this down. And at the end of every day, they'd write down 3 good things that happened today.
Yeah.
So journaling became a big thing. But if we could even just share that with the listeners to
just give it a go.
Find out your own way to do it,
but
invest some time in that space.
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways that you can do it. And even if you're not that's not something you usually do. If you just give it a go in whatever form, whether it's journaling, a guided meditation might help. And sometimes I rotate. Sometimes I'll do a guided meditation because I feel like maybe I just need a bit more of a pump up. Sometimes I want to be a bit more calm and just be with my own thoughts.
Yeah.
Just depends. And sometimes it might just be I do the gratitude. Because I've been doing it for a few years now, I might just do the gratitude and affirmations, or I might do more visualizing. So I think the last sort of few weeks, because I'd been thinking about my goals this year for work and I'd written sort of those down. I do more visualizing of me doing those things. me hosting this certain thing on the footy and visualize that and how it feels, like just how players probably visualize themselves kicking the winning field goal, right?
100%.
So I've been doing a bit more of that the last few weeks. So
how does it look? How does that feel?
Yeah, and the feeling of it too,
How
I
does
think
it
is
sound?
and because it's not just like, oh, I want to do this, but if you, which is like, would go a lot into, like players probably do this with their sports psychologists and visualization and that type of thing.
We would have a couple of little approaches to that. Visualize as if a camera is on you.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And then, okay, now let's visualize out of your own eyes.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And what does that feel like?
Yeah.
And sometimes what does that sound like? But yeah, like you are living the life as an athlete in your own world. You think like an athlete. It's obviously been an influence in your life. You mentioned your brother was a bit of a hero to you. I dare say your parents seem like they've instilled some values in you and your brother that saw him succeed in his and you're succeeding in yours.
Yeah. My brother definitely, I think, well, from my parents, I think the work ethic part of it, my parents also instilled in us, like you got to work hard for everything and yeah, we're all very close. But because my brother, he was the older brother, like I looked up to him with everything. And I think, a few things that I would have taken from them was the work ethic, but also the like determination and resilience I think I get from my brother. And just because he had, like, I feel like with his career, and that's what I have to look up to because like he's, like, I could have had another, idol that I looked up to, but probably the one who I would say my values are most based on them would be my brother. And that because his career was, he was successful and he played for Australia and all of this. But for me, what stands out is his resilience because like the amount of setbacks he had was crazy, like, and setbacks that could have ended his career. Yeah. Like the dislocated hip, they thought he may never play again because it was out for so long. Bad. And they said with the loss of blood, you may not never play again. It took like 8 doctors and nurses to get it back in. Then he had so many issues after that with like hammies and groin, all of that sort of stuff. But the one that stands out is he had a head clash with Ben Madalino at training in like his second last year of, I think it was, of footy. And his face basically collapsed and he has like, I don't know, something like 10 plates in his face, right? And they thought for a second like, oh, it wasn't even a matter of like whether he'd play footy again. Like they thought in that moment, like he like might even die when it happened. Like he was choking on his own blood, like he couldn't breathe. And he had to actually, in that moment, he said he went into this meditative state when they were waiting because he was choking on his own blood. And I remember Robbie Farah and Benji tell the story that they were crying when it happened, like to seeing him like that, like his face caved in. They said it's like nothing you've ever seen before. The ambulance took like an hour to get there. Anyway, then he's over there in hospital in New Zealand. They didn't want to fly him back, thought he could lose his eyesight. At this stage, thinking like never play footy again. Went through all of this. The fact that it obviously changes his face a bit and the way he looks, like dealing with that mentally, he came back to play footy. Like he'd faced setbacks all along, but that's a standout one where like people say to me, like, I can't believe he came back. But like seeing him go through all of that, well, for me was so inspiring. And like I always, when I go through hard things, sometimes I do use him as an example and think, oh, like he got through this, and like he definitely was a role model in that sense. And just his attitude, like he is a lot into mindset as well and reads a lot of books. And he's got this attitude that, well, you can't control what's happened, right? So he could feel sorry for himself and like, oh, my face collapsed. I missed a big chunk of footy. Like it's changed the way my face looks. But I can feel sorry for myself and be a victim, or what benefit can I get from this? You know, I can only control now how I react. So I can go and feel sorry for myself, or I can try and use it to my benefit. And he has done his career took off in a sense of he was doing does a lot of public speaking around resilience and using his story as an example in corporates. And so I can't change what's happened. And I always use his struggles as an example for myself, whether it's career or even like personal life. When I said I had, split up with my ex-partner, and he would use that as an example to me and say, Emma, can you change that now? I'm like, no. He's like, well, can you go feel sorry for yourself? Or you could go focus on yourself. What are your goals at work? You have a bit more time now to focus on work. It's about the way you view a situation. Like, don't have the victim mentality. But I feel like I've got a lot of the way my perspective on things from my brother and the way that he has dealt with adversity.
Yeah,
right?
well, there's great messages in there. We had a similar one recently with Anthony Seabold told a story where Richard Branson told him one day. Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin, who owned the London Broncos at the time.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And Anthony Seabold was about to miss this biggest game ever at Wembley in front of 90,000, and he just said, you can kick stones if you want all week, or you can find an opportunity to go and how can you contribute to the team.
Yeah.
And so having a brother that's played and you've lived that side with the family has been helpful for you because your relationships, I've noticed, with players and staff, they know that and they trust that about you.
I think it certainly helped. It's funny, in the beginning, I never really wanted, when I started out, I never wanted to be known as Chris's sister because I didn't want people to think I only got a job, like my first job in the media at Fox, that I only got that because I was Chris's sister. So I used to hate it if I'd meet someone, whether it was like working at Fox or in the industry or someone in a club, anyone. Oh, are you Chris Lawrence's sister? Yeah. I used to hate it so much, but because I thought I want to make my own name in a sense, and I want people to think or respect me as a journalist and not just think, oh, you're there because you knew someone.
Yeah.
Not that Chris had anything to do with media anyway, but it kind of, in the end, I realised that it actually helped, and I think people respected me more because you understand the game, how it all works, and even just like with the empathy with players, I can try and see, I do my best to try and see things from their perspective. So, but it's funny, a lot of interviews I would get now, the good ones where I think they open up, or ones where they might only speak, not that it would happen all the time, but if a player might only speak to me but doesn't want to speak to someone else, a lot of the time it comes back to they knew Chris at one point, really respected Chris. I've become friends with them as well through Chris. And I think it helps. It's not just the fact that Chris played, but I think it'd be fair to say Chris was really well respected, and he, the way everyone speaks about him, was someone that everyone wanted to play with, never put a foot wrong, was never involved in a scandal, was really well respected. So a lot of the relationships I will develop with players or coaches, at one point they had played with Chris, coached with Chris, so I in fact find it is quite helpful in that sense. But it's in a different sense. It means that it's a different type of journalism. Players are happy to open up on certain things and do, something like this, a sit-down interview and open up. Whereas at other times, because you are closer to them, if you find out information, I wouldn't go and put it out there because I know them. If I hear something through the Tigers or through Chris, I could never have said anything because they would know. The trust with Chris. If I'd heard something from Chris or someone I'm tight with the Tigers. So
trust is key in any form of life,
Yeah.
right? But business, coaching, teamwork, whatever. But even in your bit, there's definitely that trust. That trust is very powerful if you have it. And I mean, even me and you sitting here now, like, I've always wanted to sit there and chat about this with you because I know you've lived and breathed the family life of a player.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like when I'd first met you in and around the game, I actually didn't know you were Chris's sister. So take that as a rap.
Yeah,
You made your own.
There we go.
You made your own way in that world, and then I forget which club I was working at. Oh, that's Chris's sister, and like, so I've worked with Chris before. I'd coached there before, and I loved him. You know, like his work ethic, his professionalism, his respect for teammates, respect for staff, like everything. Like, you could not love what he was about as a person. So when someone said to me, "That's Chris's sister," there was an instant respect.
Yeah.
You know. So
yeah, that just goes to show, like it does, and I don't know why. Well, I do know. I mean, I wanted to make sure that I didn't want to think people to think I'd been given a free ride, but it took me a while to realise that the respect factor.
Yeah. Listening to this now, knowing that you lived it, breathed it, brought up in the sport, your knowledge of the sport, it's like I've spoken to you off camera a lot, and you think like a coach. You told me once you listened to the Wayne Bennett episode of our podcast because you love listening to coaches and you listen and learn. You told me you've listened to all my episodes with coaches.
Yeah, the coaches ones.
You know,
I've listened to more of the coach ones than the other ones.
So you've lived and breathed it. So any players now know you have this empathy for them because you know what it's like as a family member. The coaches know that your knowledge is fantastic of the game. I wouldn't mind finishing up with, I've been asking some guests, a favourite book.
So it's The Empowerment Dynamic by David Emerald. That's the first one she gave me. And it's turning that into, rather than being the victim, like it's that triangle, the triangle now changes to like the creator and the like inspirer or something. So you create your life. Like you're not a victim.
Yeah.
You are the creator of your life. So you go and visualize what you want. You go and come up with ways that you want to achieve what you want, but you have control over your life. Like you have to work hard at it, yes, which is true. And it's not always perfect. Like things are, Kirli had said to me one thing about, you don't think, oh, I've done all this meditation work. I've done a bit of coaching, or whether you've seen a psychologist or whatever it is. It's not like you're fixed, No. How I'm enlightened. I've done all this stuff. Like it always takes work.
Constant work.
I do mindfulness every day. I do my voice work every day because I know things take work. And even being a perfectionist, sometimes I slip back into, I might watch a live cross I've done and I'll slip back into watching it 10 times and criticising myself, but like I can get out of it quicker. Like instead of being stuck in this hole, like you might have down days, you might be hard on yourself, but like if you work at it every day, I feel like you can pick yourself up quicker. Yeah. Like the dips will be less frequent and you can get out of it quicker.
I love it.
I think.
Finally then, you do a lot of voice work.
Yes.
Give me one tip for me, because I want to keep it cool and casual and like we're sitting having a coffee or a beer with my listeners.
Yes.
But one little tip that could take me down this path.
One little tip? Well, I think the energy is good. Like I think, because that, particularly if it's audio, like you can just capture attention with energy without having to make you do lots of vibration exercises and voice work, but but still be yourself.
Finish with that. Well, thanks heaps for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Well done for everything you've achieved and where you're going. And thanks for inspiring some listeners out there, and in particular some young girls as well, and females.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Some of the best learning you will ever do will be traveling. Give yourself space, time to creatively think, to learn, to meet people, or Take a vacation with your family. Give yourself that time. And there's no better person or people or company to help you than the people at Tripadeal. Their experienced agents will look after you from start to finish. They will plan your flights, your accommodation, your car, your excursions, whatever you need. If you want to plan a trip of a lifetime, Tripadeal is the place to go. tripadeal.com.au